Did you guys know that Kate Bishop in the comics is actually pretty sassy and has a lot of good banter with other characters, especially Clint Barton? Man, I wish he had this much personality in the show. When it comes to the MCU shows, their range has kind of been all over the place for me. WandaVision started out really good, but kind of got worse as the show went on, with the final episode being the weakest one. Loki is near perfect, and I can't wait to see Season 2. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was slow, boring, and overall not very interesting apart from a few scenes and ideas. And What If was a really cool concept, but some episodes were weaker than others, and that last episode of having them all team up was a big waste of time in my opinion. So when going into Hawkeye, I wasn't super hyped, but I also wasn't dreading its release either. I was just expecting a fun, short series about an Avenger that didn't get much of the spotlight in the other movies, and thankfully he does! Along with a lot of dumb shit as well. This show has so many issues that it might just be the worst MCU show in my opinion, but there's only one way to find out. Ah, shit. Where do I even start with this show? I guess I'll go over the good stuff first, since there's definitely more stuff I hate in it. For one, I loved Hawkeye in this show. No, not you. The actual one. Who would have guessed that the best character in this show was the one it's named after? A lot of people seem to think he's out of character in this show. He's a lot more senile and seems to be annoyed all the time when he's away from his family, but I think that's completely in character for him. After the events of Infinity War and Endgame, this is exactly how he should be acting. He lost his whole family, committed war crimes to cope with his losses, and then only got them back because two of his closest friends died. I think people tend to forget that Clint is actually just a normal dude and can't really process any of this weird superhero shit like the others. That was literally his whole bit in Age of Ultron.
Okay, look, the city is flying. We're fighting an army of robots. And I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
So him becoming a cranky old dad that just wants to retire is completely fine with me. We get a lot of good scenes about how losing Black Widow affected him, and it's pretty emotional. Another thing I like is that the show is actually short. It's a small scale series, so I'm glad I didn't need to stick around too long, because then you get the same problems Falcon and the Winter Soldier had. But honestly, when you watch Hawkeye, you realize it could have and should have been even shorter. Oh yeah, and the Tracksuit Mafia is fucking hilarious. I love these guys.
I love Imagine Dragons.
Now here's where we get into the shitty side. Let's start with the characters, because holy crap, there's way too many of them. Besides Hawkeye, no one else is really written all that well, except for Yelena. She's pretty good in this show and transitioned well from Black Widow, but unfortunately she's not in the show very much. But she should have been. Echo is a new character to the MCU and has a really cool backstory that ties in with Ronin. Her character could have been more fleshed out, but unfortunately she's not in the show very much. But she should have been. Kingpin is brought over to the MCU, and I haven't seen Daredevil yet, but I know he's way better in that show than he is in this one. He literally only shows up in the last episode, blows up, and gets shot off screen. That'd be like if some random guy decided to join me in this review.
Yeah, that'd be pretty stupid, wouldn't it?
Now I know he's not dead because that would be the dumbest possible thing to do, but he does barely anything in this show. He could have easily tied into the Ronin part of the story. Have him be the one who hired him to kill all those other gang members or something. He should have been the final boss of the show, but unfortunately he's not in it very much. But he should have been. You see what I mean when I say the show could have been way shorter? They throw in 3 main antagonists at you, who each would have worked really well if they were the main villain, but instead it just clumsily throws all 3 of them at you at the same time, and it just doesn't work at all. There's technically a 4th villain in the show, but honestly she's so useless in the story and it was so predictable that I'm not even gonna count it. There's these LARP guys who help Clint and Kate. They feel really out of place, and I was surprised that they kept showing up. There's this fucking guy. Who the fuck is this guy? Kazi? Kazi is the most useless character in the whole show. He's used as Echo's supporting character, but he does fuck all in this show. All he does is tell Echo not to fight Ronin, helps her fight him anyway, gets mad, then tries to kill Echo and dies. Who the fuck was this character? He has zero connection to the Ronin part of the story, but he just keeps saying he was there? Why couldn't they just remove him from the story and focus on Echo, who is the much more interesting character? I fucking hate this guy. Oh, but don't worry, there's a much, much worse character in the show. No one deserves this award way more than Kate Bishop.
Where's Kate Bishop?
Who are you talking about?
That's me whenever I see her. Kate is just the most annoying piece of shit ever. I guess she's supposed to be the overexcited fangirl who is meant to be over the top, but there could have been a way better way to write that, because Spider-Man in the MCU is almost the exact same trope, but it's fine because he's not written like an annoying chihuahua. I feel like she could have been written somewhat like how she is in the comics. Instead of making her a fangirl, how about she starts off like that, but after seeing how much of a cranky old man Clint is, she just keeps teasing him about how much better of an archer she is just to get a rise out of him. That would have been way more dynamic in my opinion, because the relationship in the majority of the show is kind of just, Clint, I have a fan question to ask. Shut up, Kate. Okay, and then it just keeps going. It's not that Haley Steinfeld is doing a bad job, she's a good actress, but I'm just saying, out of these 4 characters that I loved her performance in, this is the weakest character she's portrayed. It's even more annoying that Kate and Echo barely get any screen time because they are literal polar opposites to each other. Kate, a girl who was saved by Hawkeye who now worships and idolizes him, versus Echo, a girl who was scarred by Ronin and now wants to hunt him down. They are literally yin and fucking yang. I don't know how you don't show these 2 characters together more often. It's right fucking in front of you! The pacing of this show can be really sluggish. Most of those scenes being with Kate interacting with her totally innocent and not twist villain mother. The last episode is just a story-structured mess. The last battle literally consists of Clint fighting Yelena, Kate fighting Kingpin, and Echo fighting Fuckface all at the same time. And it just bounces between all 3 and it's a goddamn nightmare. I also don't like the directing of this show that much. The fights are either just bland or straight up embarrassing. Do you guys see that really bad cut when the bottle gets shot? What the hell is that amateur shit? I think the most disappointing thing about the show is the ending, because in the last episode, Clint just gives Kate the title of Hawkeye. Now I knew the purpose of this show was to write Clint Barton off and have Kate take over the mantle. But clearly the show didn't know, because this comes out of fucking nowhere. There's no build up to this. The relationship is not even close for this moment to be earned. The whole series should have been about Clint's retirement. Having one of the original members leave should be way more impactful than what we got in the show. This moment was not earned at all. I hate Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but even that show handled its passing of the torch theme way better than this. I don't know why it was so hard. This show should have been the easiest one to write, but it just fumbled it so badly. When you compare this to the other MCU shows, this is the most basic one. There's no themes of time, magic, or anything political. It's literally just an old guy training a girl to fight crime, and it somehow misses the entire point of that. The bloated cast really just fumbles with the story. This pacing is so sluggish that you get bored half the time, and the character dynamics between our 2 leads is not interesting enough. Kate Bishop is not interesting enough in this show, and she should be. I hate to say it, but I think this is the worst one so far. I originally hated Falcon and the Winter Soldier the most, but that show has some interesting things in it, some really emotional scenes, and some really good ideas. And this show just doesn't have any of that. I gotta give Hawkeye a 3 out of 10 on this one.